Kev, really appreciate you talking to us this afternoon here at Loughborough. It's been a great trip so far. You've been heavily involved, but before we look at that, maybe you could just take a minute to introduce yourself to the supporters and also explain your background in what you do.
Well, the title I got at the club is as a performance coach, and that's really a unique position at Ipswich Town. In various sports, you'll be familiar with a role that people might call sports psychology. And I often get chunked into that category. But the truth is I'm not a sports psychologist. I do have knowledge and expertise in that area around dealing with the mind and the emotions. But for me, in my role, it's more than that. It's about team dynamics, it's about leadership and communication and a whole load of different things. You asked me about my background, and really I got lucky. I chose my parents wisely, and I got born into football. So my granddad played for the army, could have had chances to go and play for Nottingham Forest. An uncle had the opportunity to go and play at West Ham, and my dad played semi-pros at Rotherham and then coached in the youth team at Leeds United. And so as a child, from the age of 3, 4, 5, my weekends, my school holidays were spent on a training ground around some of the greats during that Leeds era, where they brought through players like David Seaman and Dennis Irwin and David Batty and Gary Speed and others. And I thought that that was normal. And of course it's not. And I was privileged to be in that kind of environment as a child and learning from great players and learning from great coaches. I got to go and play as a young player, go through the youth system at Sheffield United. I had a back injury and a hip injury. Career was over before it really began. So then it was like, well, if I can't play, I'll coach. So I took my football coaching qualifications, had a position over in the United States, had a chance to come back and coach at Leeds United, but decided not to do that and actually dedicated myself to wanting to help young people through the education system. I got lucky at Sheffield. I worked under a head coach called Dave Bassett, and some people might remember him, others, the younger fans might not, but he won more promotions from one league to another than any other manager in the history of the game, apart from Graham Taylor, and then that record was recently broken by Warnock.
Yeah.
Well, Dave was an innovator. He was doing video analysis before anybody else. He was doing sports psychology before anybody else. He was doing nutrition and all those sorts of things. And the particular work with the psychologist helped me, not just as an athlete, but as a person in my life in general. So I wanted to pay that forward. I was like, why did they make me go to school for all those years and make me learn things like maths, English, science, stuff that I'm never going to use, Shakespeare, Pythagoras and all that. But I didn't get to learn about self-confidence. I didn't get to learn about how to manage my emotions. I didn't get to learn about how to take care of me and communicate effectively and be part of a team. So I set myself a little goal to go and try and help 1 million young people get a better start in life by taking what's now called mental health and embedding it in the curriculum and teaching teachers how to do that. So I spent a lot of time doing that. But because of my upbringing, I knew a lot of people in football. And I got asked to go and work with players, be it one-to-ones. You might have a centre forward that's having a confidence crisis, and I'd get a call, can you go and help him before a big Sky Sports game? Or I'd get pulled into clubs, and sometimes they were one-offs, and at other times they were bigger, longer periods of work. So I got to go into places like Nottingham Forest, Hull City, back to Sheffield United, Rotherham, Barnsley, other places. And over the years, you start to build more connections and more relationships. I ended up working with Mark Ashton and Andy Rolls at other clubs that they'd been at before. And when they came here a year ago, I was delighted that they gave me a call and said, would you come and help us build a culture and help develop the sports psychology, the emotional fitness, as I call it, and the mental health of not just our players, but our wider staff, not just the first team, but through the academy and the rest of the club as well. So it's a real privilege to be here. I've been kind of operating behind the scenes for 12 months now. And yeah, thanks for inviting me along to have a little chat today.
You say you've been operating behind the scenes, but some supporters have spotted you and your shoes. You haven't been hiding too well with those. Is there a little story behind those ones?
It's all a little bit of an accident. It was something that happened in some schools, as was mentioned earlier, where I once had a pair of yellow shoes. And then it became an expectation that I would wear them. And if I didn't wear them, people were like, I'm disappointed, you're not wearing them, where are they? Of course, when I came to Ipswich, I thought, I've got a bit of a problem here. Because the old rivals up the road wear yellow. In colour psychology, yellow is a colour of confidence, of self-esteem, of happiness. So with my role, that's important. But the other connection for me was I grew up during the Bobby Robson era. And so the first Ipswich Town teams I got to see were the ones that were winning trophies, and their away kit at that time was yellow.
Yeah.
So it's my little nod to the past to say that we want to work together as a group and bring some of those glory years back. So the yellow has stayed, and I'm well aware, and hopefully it's not causing too much offence, but it's a good bit of banter around the group and around the players.
We've seen you working, and I think it's absolutely clear to see how much you're enjoying meeting with the group and the work that you're doing. How are they feeling about this? Because you've mentioned the progress that psychology and performance coach is making in the general sport. How do you feel the squad is approaching your involvement with them?
It's a special group.
Yeah.
And I don't say that lightly. That's not about me trying to feed something out to the fans. I've worked in many organisations where people say they want to succeed, but they have unwritten rules about what they think they could or should do, or what they are willing or not willing to do to make that success happen. There won't be many teams who aren't starting out now doing pre-season going, we want to be top 6, we want to be top 2. But it takes a group of people to be open-minded. While we're having this chat now, there's research being done all over the world about what it takes for people to be happy and successful, to perform, if you like, at their high levels of potential. And so we don't have to second guess that anymore. We don't have to reinvent a wheel. We can take evidence-based strategies and we can apply them. Oftentimes, though, they're out of the norm. They're not conforming with the traditions of how football used to be done. And so sometimes if you've got an old school group, they go, I'm not having that. But like today, we've been doing some meditation. Last night, we were doing various forms of goal setting, and there'll be other kinds of team building and other evidence-based activities that we'll be doing as the season progresses. And they're hungry for it. They're curious, they ask questions, they join in. They're genuinely a fantastic group of young men that are a real pleasure to work with.
I think it's also important, I know the main thing that you're working with is the first team group, but you are accessible to all members of staff at the football club, aren't you?
Yeah, there are some mandatory sessions that we do because the boss wants to get certain principles around personal responsibility, leadership, resilience, those sorts of things into everyone. But then it's also for people to want to take a lead in their own development and their own career. So there's optional one-to-ones, there's optional group workshops. And so I like to be able to be accessible to whoever wants that help. And that might mean that I'm on a late night Zoom with somebody or coming in early morning face to face. And it's a privilege because people open up. Oftentimes, and I don't know if you've ever had an experience like this, many of us go through our lives when we're younger and somebody will say, you know, your problem, you know, you just need to believe in yourself a bit more. If you just had a bit more self-belief, then you'd go far. And yeah, that's right. But then how do you do that? How do you do self-belief? How do you do confidence? And when you apply that, not just to normal life, but to football, which is a bit different, because most people don't get a job where 20,000 people come to their office and express their opinions about how well they think you are or aren't doing. And then you finish the game and sometimes you get good reviews and other times you might get slated by opposition, by media, by fans or wherever it may be. So helping a group of people develop skills to deal with that and not cave in, but to thrive, to rise and to go again, that's really important.